Looking ahead.
All right, and this week on Looking Ahead, we are looking to the new decade. It is almost the end of the decade, and 2020 is around the corner. And so what I thought might be interesting was to try a new segment here on the show and look at a rapid-fire segment. So what I found was there's a great article on The Guardian, which is a UK publication, looking at 20 predictions for technology in 2020 and beyond. So what I thought I'd do is I'd pull a few out, and I'd throw them at Chad. Chad hasn't seen these at all, so it's going to be straight off the cuff. And I thought I'd get his quick rapid-fire thoughts on each one as to whether he agrees or disagrees. And we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments as well. So if you do hear these predictions, wherever you are, on whatever social media platform you're on, let us know what your thoughts are. Obviously, these predictions are always interesting to put your rod in the sand and make a call, and then see in 2021, 2022 whether you were right or not. Chad, are you ready to get started?
I'm ready.
All right. The first one is that the Tesla Cybertruck won't ship in 2020. Thoughts?
I mean, this one's a bit of a no-brainer, really. They put their release date at 2021. How is this even on the list?
I think it's an easy one to start with. It's just going to ease you into it. Ease you into it. I agree completely. It won't be even 2021 is going to be a push. I think. I would say 2022 is a safe bet. All right, the next one. Google Duplex won't come to Europe. Now, Google Duplex, for those who don't know, was that amazing innovation that Google showed where the robot was booking the hair salon appointment on the behalf of the user. So at one of the Google I/O conferences last year, the CEO kind of showed off this new technique where they use machine learning and artificial intelligence to get a robot to book appointments for you. And so what they showed was a robot phoning a real hair salon and having a conversation in real time, adjusting to what the human was saying on the other side, and booking a hair appointment or a restaurant appointment, etc. Now, this was fascinating because it opens up a whole new world of AI and a whole new world of automation and robotics. But what was really terrifying was that the person on the other side didn't know it was a robot. And so there's a lot of ethical dilemmas that come into play. And Europe has been very, very stingy and very, very restrictive with their regulations, especially the GDPR with privacy, and it kind of defeats the point if the thing has to go, by the way, I'm a robot, and has to kind of identify itself, because then it defeats the point, right? And so the prediction is that it won't come to Europe. Europe will miss out on this because they're too restrictive with their regulations. Do you have any thoughts, Chad?
Well, I didn't know about their technology, and it's fascinating that is ready. So just the sound that it won't be released because of GDPR is very different to it won't be released because it's not ready. So that's fascinating. In terms of GDPR, definitely being in Europe, I've felt it. So I was here on the day that it came into effect, and at the time working at a top 10 EMEA investment bank, it certainly was a big focus. Certainly all of us online have been really annoyed with it when going to any new website, having to click on
all those cookies,
notifications. 100%, but I think it's a powerful piece of regulation, and I think it's there for the right reason. I think it, as you say, safeguards us against privacy breaches. So, interesting one. I definitely see where they came to that conclusion.
Interesting. We'll have to see what comes with that. The next one is looking at advertising. Advertising is obviously the bedrock of a lot of giant tech companies, Google, Amazon, Facebook, etc. And we've chatted a lot about this business model is a little bit broken in the past. And what we're seeing as well is a shift in user behavior from searches on Google to a lot of people using smart speakers in their homes. So using Amazon Echoes and HomePods and all these kinds of things. And without the friction of having to pick up your phone, ordering groceries or ordering stuff online to be delivered to your house. Now, on top of that, obviously, these companies need to monetize this somehow. And at the moment, there hasn't been ads when you go and do these kinds of things or use your smart speaker, but the monetization has to come at some stage. So the prediction is that in 2020, they start putting ads on top of this voice platform, potentially increasing the friction and potentially making the user experience worse, but in order to monetize that platform. Chad, what do you think?
I definitely think it's possible. I mean, let's look at the people who are doing these advertising. I mean, the smart homes currently out there at the moment are Siri, belonging to Apple, Google Home, obviously belonging to Google, and Amazon Alexa, belonging to Amazon. Each of those three platforms would be able to throw an advert in the mix at some point. So I think that could definitely start coming. I would really not be pleased with that at all, because you've bought these devices. Royalties and license fees are paid to by the manufacturer to these companies for those services. So I would be pretty annoyed if that happens, but very possible in this day and age.
We have to wait and see. All right, the next one is talking about cell phone technology, looking at 5G. Now, 5G, we chatted about a little bit about in our last episode, is the new part of the spectrum, which is way faster and way more reliable, theoretically, in some instances, and has really kind of captured the new thinkers of the cell phone technology and trying to think of where is this technology going to go in the future, what kind of communication protocols are going to be in place. And 5G, for the most part, has kind of been isolated to some of the most developed cities in the world, some of the major hubs of New York, San Francisco, Tokyo, London, etc. It hasn't really had that much of an impact outside of that. And the prediction here from The Guardian is that in 2020, 5G will become a much more meaningful portion of communication and a much more meaningful piece of our lives. What do you think, Chad?
I mean, we've seen all of the generation iterations in the past. I mean, let's remember 3G, obviously a while back now, but how much that changed everything. Going from edge to HSDPA and all of those types of technologies, and now 4G is completely normal. And obviously, with each of these iterations, the speed of the data coming across dramatically changes our lives. So I completely agree. I mean, even if we look at the trend of how fiber is now in the home, in South Africa, which is quite a big development, and certainly all over the world, I definitely could see 5G coming into play next year. Obviously, the infrastructure and all of that type of development is the only barrier, I'd say. But yeah, let's have a look to see if that prediction is correct.
Great. All right, we've got a few more here. The next one we look at is virtual reality. So the prediction here from The Guardian is that virtual reality is going to have another mini boom. So VR has been a technology that has so much potential over the last couple of years, but hasn't really paid out that potential just yet. We haven't seen a mass market product that's really taken VR and taken it to the people. At the moment, it's kind of resigned to a very small part of the market. So what do you think about VR, Chad? Is it going to have this big year in 2020?
So yeah, VR, an interesting one. For me, I haven't really got too involved in VR, but certainly I know PlayStation made it a lot more accessible to those who already had a console. Things like the Oculus Rift, quite a big one for the PC gamers out there. And of course, when we were doing our board course, Barry was quite fascinated with the idea of a virtual change room. So yeah, interesting to see whether that will come out again and have another mini boom. I'm not too convinced, seeing as it hasn't really touched my side at all.
I tend to agree. I think that there's a lot of user experience issues that still need to be fixed. In that, there's a lot of issues with motion sickness and kind of latency in a lot of those devices. And while there's so much potential, we simply haven't seen that killer app that's going to force people to go and buy it for their Christmas presents and actually spend a lot of time on it. From what I've seen, it's fun for 20 minutes until you start feeling a bit dizzy and feeling a bit woozy, and that's pretty much it. And when you compare that to people who can sit in front of Netflix for hours, sit in front of a PlayStation for hours, I'm battling to see how it's going to really change user behavior until they fix some of those little glitches.
Yeah, I think every couple of years you get one of these types of technologies that just doesn't quite hit the spot. I mean, let's look at 3D televisions and how we all thought that would be so cool, but just that not perfect execution, obviously, just resulting in a bit of a dead technology.
No, without a doubt. So I have to watch and see what happens with VR in the future. All right, I'm going to call one last one here, and I'm going to do this because Chad loves his gear. So the prediction here is that the next iPhone is going to have not one, not two, not three, but 4 cameras on the rear side of the device. We've seen a huge battle between all the smartphone manufacturers. How many cameras can we squeeze into this thing? Chad, do you think that the next iPhone is going to have 4?
4 cameras. I'm just trying to think what you'd need each of those for. I mean, we've got the telephoto lens, we've got the sort of normal, and we've got the wide angle now. As far as I can see, those are all the ones we need. But certainly this trend is not one that I would have seen coming in the first place. So maybe that could happen. We could maybe see 4 cameras. I think it's ridiculous. And I've also heard of a sort of, I'm not sure if it's a mental condition, but there's a condition. It's a phobia. And this has been affecting people with the iPhone 11, basically the shape of the cameras. So it's a phobia where you can't look at patterns with lots of circles. And I think if they just add more circles to the mix, they might start alienating some users.
That's interesting. I've never heard of that before. So maybe the guys with that phobia need to speak up and stop that 4th camera from getting on there.
Absolutely.
Well, that brings an end to our rapid fire round. Thank you, Chad. What I think would be interesting is that to hear from you guys, hear what your thoughts are on those various topics. And hopefully in a year's time, we can look back on these predictions and see what turned out right and what turned out wrong. As with all these tech, you can never really predict. The future is so different, and often people can't even imagine what's coming down the pipe. And so we'll wait with bated breath for 2020 and see what's happening with tech.